Unmasking the Covered Me podcast. UTCM was birthed from me realizing that there is a greater me on the inside of me. The phrase "there's a greater you on the inside of you" means being above normal, understanding your worth, and being confident in knowing who you are. But the first person who has to realize that there's a greater you on the inside of you is you. In life, we all go through stages of the good, the bad, and the ugly, which leads us to our purpose and promise. UTCM is a platform where you get to share your story and your truth of unmasking moments that allows you to embrace all stages in your life. UTCM looks forward to many people being able to unmask, uncover, and unveil themselves on the podcast. Thank you for watching and joining us.
Hey, we live. Look. She's like, nope, not beat.
Yeah, right.
Hey, and my sister we got on our shirts.
Yes.
Unmasking the Cover Me t-shirts. Yes, so if I have shirts, I read up. So I have shirts, I have sweatshirts, I have cups, and I have books. So hit me up.
Oh my God.
It's okay. Hey, welcome everybody to UTCM. Unmasking the Cover Me, Season 2, Episode 10. I was just thinking about that the other day. I cannot believe that come January, it'll be 3 years since I've been doing a podcast.
Wow.
Right. Crazy. I'm excited, but I'm also tired, y'all. I've been putting some work in this week. I'm a little tired, but we're gonna have a good time tonight. So I wanted to do something a little different tonight because I started to use Cherell, like, don't start.
Right, don't do it.
No, it's nothing bad, right? So I started using affirmation cards, right? And I've never used affirmation cards. Like I speak affirmations. I have an affirmation app, but I never really had something like tangible, right? So it's a good friend of mine who I also consider as my sister. She created these affirmation cards called Hello Sunshine. Oh, wait, can you guys see it? Hello Sunshine. Right. So tonight I'm gonna pick one for us and I'm gonna read it. And then I'm gonna drop the information. If anybody's interested in affirmation cards, I will drop them in the comment. I'll drop her information in the comment section because you can purchase a deck if you want them. So let's see. Oh, well, let's see. We got some people commenting too. Hey, everybody. All right. So I'm about to pick an affirmation card for us, sis Cherell. All right. I'm going to read our affirmation, right? So the affirmation says, my abundance is forever in my favor. With God, I lack nothing.
That's good.
And it says, if you ever had the question, is this going to last? This is for you. So yeah, so wait. This affirmation, I don't know, can y'all see it? My light may be too bright. Yeah, so if y'all want Hello Sunshine affirmation cards, I'm gonna make sure I put her information in the comment section because they actually been helping me a little bit. Like sometimes when I'm just like, oh, she have them in this little pouch, so you can have them like on the go. I have them in my pocketbook, and if like I'm having a time at work, I'm like, you know what? Let me just pull out an affirmation. I need something real quick. Pull it, it'd be right on time, exactly what I need. So I love my little affirmation card. So thank you, Ashley, my girl Ashley, shouting her out. So I am going to, like I said, I'll put her information in the chat. Okay, so it's time to get down with my sis. Hey, first of all, I just want to say that I am super proud of you, right? That you are continuing to put action behind your yes. You are doing it afraid, right? Because this is not something that you don't like to be put on Front Street. at all, right? So first thing is first, this is the person that I was telling you guys about, her conference, the Mother to Mother conference. So this is the beautiful host. No, not the host. This is the beautiful creator of the Mother to Mother conference, right? I was the host, but this was the creator. This is the person who had the brains behind this and manifested this beautiful conference. That she should be doing another one next year, right? Yeah, we just have to get the save the date. We just have to get the save the date. But I'm just super proud of you, without any hesitation. As much as I know that she does not like to be on Front Street, she understands the call, right? She understands that she wants to help other people through maybe some of the things and challenges that she has went through, right? And she is not afraid to share anymore. So I am super excited. I'm super proud of my sister Cherell. I just thank you so much for just saying yes. I thank you for saying yes. I really do. So let's dive right on in, right? Good evening, everybody. Hey, everybody. Wait. Let me say hi to a couple people. Hey, Steph. Shay is on. Hey, Shay. Jazz is on. Hey, everybody. Thank y'all for coming on. Thank y'all for y'all support. I love y'all for real. Y'all really just been rocking out with me for real. And that means a lot. That definitely means a lot. So, all right, let's dive right on in. So, sis, Cherell, brag about yourself a little bit, because it may be somebody that may not really know Cherell, right? So, brag about who Cherell is a little bit.
So Cherell is a strong woman.
Wait, turn your volume up, sis. I can't hear you. You sound a little low.
Can you hear me now? Good. Yes. No.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Cherell, I put it in my questionnaire, so she'll probably get to that point. But I am becoming. That's the greatest thing I can say about myself at this point, because I'm still getting to know me in so many aspects. As a mother, as a friend, as a sister, as a daughter. But I am very passionate about anything and everything that's connected to me. And I say that's the best thing I can say to brag right about now. Like, I'm growing and glowing, and I'm very proud of where I am today.
Dope. And it's funny that you mentioned that, right? Because you did mention that in a questionnaire, right? And I feel like whenever anybody asks us about like ourselves, like describe who you are or tell me a little bit about yourself, right? I feel like our first thing or our go-to is always like, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, right? And we never really kind of like take the moment to say like who we really are, right? Outside of those things. So I felt like I've learned to kind of take a pause now, right? When somebody asks me that question, like, who is Naisha? Like, I don't like, that's just not my automatic go-to, right? Because I'm so much more than just a mom and a wife and a daughter and a sister, right, and a friend. Right. I am like, I share the same sentiment with you. I am becoming. I feel like I'm forever becoming. Right. I don't feel like there's really gonna be a point in life to where you're like, oh, I have arrived, right? I feel like on this journey, I feel like we're always going to evolve. We're always going to be leveling up to another level, right? We're always going to be another version of ourselves that we've never seen before, right? So I like the fact that you said that you are becoming, and I wanted to talk about that too as well. So I wanted to talk about like, what does that look like for Cherell, like you becoming? What does that becoming look like for you?
For me, the I am becoming is more so of me walking into who God has called me to be, who He's ordained me to be, and not so much of my idea of myself or who I was, or who I was not to be. I spent a lot of time chasing what I didn't want to be as a mother, as a friend, aspects, but not really taking the time to say, okay, God, what did you call me? Why, what do you have for me to do? So the I am becoming is very broad in every aspect of my life, but mainly for me, it's just really who God has called me to be.
Yeah. Sis, bring your phone a little closer to you, because I feel like I really can't, like, I can hear you, but I feel like it's like faint a little bit too as well.
Are we better? Are we louder?
No. Give
No?
me a little bit more.
Okay, hold on. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can hear you better now. Yeah. I can hear you better now. All right. So, okay. I had a thought, but let's go back, right? Because I did forget to, I always ask all my guests this question, right? Like, how did you feel about the questionnaires? Like, what was your thought process about the questionnaire?
Um, when I first seen it, of course, I was like, ooh, what's this? But the questionnaire, I feel like, was very detailed and important. It kind of wasn't the surface things that you may think about when somebody's going to ask you questions about themselves or to ask you questions about yourself. Um, but it was very helpful, just making you think about things, reflecting on things that you may haven't thought about in a long time, to be able to answer, authentically. So I appreciate the questionnaire. I think everybody should definitely do the questionnaire, even if it's not for the podcast. Do it for yourself. Ask yourself questions that you don't every day. You got to sometimes and get off the surface.
Yeah. And that's the point too. And so I've been kind of, the crazy thing is, because like I just shared, right? So January will make year 3 for the podcast, and I'm like, okay, so I feel like I want to go a little bit deeper with the questionnaire for the next guests that come on. Like, even though these questions are good questions, right? They really have you thinking. They're not questions that you can just, quickly respond to, right? Like, you really have to give some thought, right? And you really have to like kind of write out and be able to process, some of those thoughts too, as well, like what you write down. But I feel like I want a deeper level, of healing. So yeah, so that's something to think about. So that the next crew around,
But
well, I am thinking about doing, I have some things that I've been thinking about that I want to do. Like, I want to bring back certain guests and like have like a huge like platform. I feel like on like for StreamYard, they allow you to do like 6 guests at a time. So I want to do something like with having a couple of guests come back. Like, so I want to level up, right? So it's 3 years. It's time to, put a little twist to it, do a little something different. You don't want to be the same, right? We just talked about becoming, right? So I'm like, even though I'm like, that's like super uncomfortable, like, do I want to? And I'm like, I'm gonna do it afraid. I'm gonna do it. So it's all good. All right. So you mentioned, right? I asked you, the question was, what was your first step in uncovering the hidden you, right? And I feel like what you said, I felt like it was like simple, but it has so much power behind it, right? And when I say simple, it's because it was just like, it was a phrase that you said, but there was so much power behind it. And I kind of want you to just speak on that, right? So I'm going to read what you said. So you said, realizing that God loves me and embracing it, right? So what does God loving you look like for you?
God loving me looks like it's God's love. It's unconditional. It's faithful. It's things that that you're not going to get in any other relationship, whether it be your biological parents, sisters, brothers, whatever it is. And for me, I felt like at the place I was, that was the only thing that was going to get me to see how God loves me, how he wants me to love other people, and loving myself the right way, because my idea of love was not God's love. So I felt like I was in a conflicted space of what actually is and what I thought.
Mm.
Able to understand that God loves me, then I could learn how to ask Him to show me how to love myself the right way, as He sees me, as daughter, as what He's called, not my idea of what love may feel like or what it is in every other relationship. I like, to me, that was not a constant factor in my life. I just knew, of course, I love God. I knew God. I felt like I had a relationship with God, but I didn't believe that God loved me, because if I believed that God loved me, then I wouldn't have the doubt that I had in the season I was in of my, and trying to figure out where I was going or what I was doing. So once I was able to do that and embrace it, I felt like it unlocked, a lot. It showed me areas of where I was, part of where I haven't been, where I've come away from, and, still where I needed to go. So that for me was big. It was simple, like you said, it seems simple, but it's broad.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's kind of like that. Like I always say, like, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Like the cup has to be fully filled for you, right? You also have to love you more, right, in order for you to be able to love others around you. Right. So I kind of want you, because maybe some may know, maybe some may not know, right? Like because you said you were in a tough season, right? A tough spot. Can you talk about that tough spot or season that you were in, to where you were figuring out that God loved you? Like what did that season look like for you? Like what kind of space was Cherell in?
So I was in a very, very, I would say, dark space. I was in a dark space. I was in a place in life where I thought I could never be, because I guess I can use the word naive. I was kind of naive in what I thought life would be like as an adult. I felt like if I went to work every day, if I saved money, no bad could come to me because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And at that time, specifically, I had just transitioned into a new place. But prior to that, I was staying with a friend for a while with both of my kids. I didn't have a job. My license was suspended. I couldn't drive my car. And I was in a new place, new location that I had never been in before. I didn't know anybody. I just felt like everything was new. I feel like God literally stripped me away from everything that I knew and put me into a place that I had never been. We've all experienced some types of hardship, but for me, this was new, especially as an adult, having two children, very small. They probably both were still under the age of 2 or 2 and 1. So it was hard um, to be alone and not have the everyday things that you feel like you need to survive and to provide for yourself and your family and be able to function. So at that time, I felt like I had nothing. Like even when I moved into where I was, I had nothing. It wasn't, fully furnished. It wasn't glamorous. It was literally like air mattress, blanket, and that's it. And it was a place that I didn't think I ever could get to because I felt like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But it was a life lesson that showed me that things can still happen. So you have to have that armor. You have to have that relationship. Use your tools, use what God has given you and not just put it to the white side when you feel like you need it when times are troubled. It's a everyday. It's not like dating, it's a full time, it's a commitment. And I learned a lot of that through that time because I felt like I didn't want to share those things with a lot of people. I was embarrassed. And I didn't feel like anybody could do anything, and really nobody could. People could talk and encourage and do all those things, but it really was a me and God thing at that point because I felt so low and afraid and stuck that there was nothing else I could do but lean on God in that time.
Yeah. And that's a scary place to be too when you in like that dark space, when you feel like you're alone, but you do, like, there are people that are around you that really care and that genuinely do love you, right? And don't want to see you in that space. But it's something about you having to be able to walk to the light yourself. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care how much people tell you, like, like, I got you, I'm here for you, no, you're beautiful, you're wonderfully made, no, God got you. Like, they can tell you that until you are blue in the face and you ain't breathing no more. But if you don't believe it, it doesn't even matter. And you got to really believe it and receive it for yourself, like, wholeheartedly. And I feel like the same, like, I always talk about this story too as well, about God stripping me away from everything that I knew that was so comfortable, right? So my husband, my kids, my sisters, and having to end up in the hospital during a time, during COVID, where no visitors were allowed, and all I could do was look up to him. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it didn't matter anymore what anybody said. Like, he literally had to take me away from what I knew was what was comfortable, and really just allow me to see it for myself and know that he will get me through this. But I just gotta believe. So being in that dark space, it's not fun, and it hurts, and it's very uncomfortable. But I've grown to understand that it's necessary. It's a necessary place. You don't realize that when you in it though. Like, you don't, you know what I'm saying? You like, I'm but when you come out of it and you're like on the other side of it, you're like, dang, like, I went through all of that for this. Wow. Like, what if I wouldn't, like, what if I did not? And it's, it also brings me back to that. It's some people that don't make it. They don't make it to that light, because they just don't see it, and they may take their life, or they may be out of their mind, like, like, it's just, and I'm just like, God, I thank you, yo. Like, I be talking to him like I'm talking to like one of my sisters, like you, like, real legit, like, for real. Like, you kept me in my right mind. Like, I see now, working in the hospital and seeing people, not, having altered mental status. Like, it's real. It's real. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful for life. Like, so I don't feel like that's a cliche anymore for me. Like, I am really grateful and thankful for life, for real. Yeah. So, the question that I asked, right, was, what was your process? Right. I feel like that's such a huge word. And process has been just coming up the past, like, couple of weeks. Nobody wants to go through process because it's so uncomfortable, but process is necessary. Like I just said, right? Like, you have to be able to go through process to be able to understand, you know what I'm saying, why you were going through what you were going through. And you go through to bring other people through too as well. Right. So when I asked the question, what did your process of uncovering the hidden you look like? Right. And what kind of drew me in was, you said it felt more like a breakdown than a breakthrough. Right. So kind of just speak about, even if it's just like a moment that you had, right? That it just felt like it was like that breakdown. It was the breakdown moment, but not a breakthrough. But it really was a breakthrough. But you didn't feel like, it didn't feel that way, right? So kind of talk about, you know what I'm saying, maybe one of those moments, or, you know what I'm saying, or that moment.
Like I said, in that time, I had just transitioned, and I would say I was at a point where, a lot of times when people feel like they're in trouble, or, they're not hearing from God, they're like, oh, have I prayed? I need to pray. But I had gotten to a point where I didn't have any words. I didn't have any words. I couldn't speak. I felt like my throat was closed up, and I was just muted because I felt like I had nothing left to say. And I just literally cried. I went to pray, and it was tears. It was yelling. It was crying. It was screaming. It was no words whatsoever. It was just tears and whatever my body had energy to give out. There was no conversation. There was no thinking. There was no There was no asking. It was literally just tears. And it was painful because I wanted to be able to say something. I wanted to be able to acknowledge God still. Like, I'm going through this, but I'm still here. Like, I'm not walking away from you no matter what. I didn't have any words. And that was just like the first step of allowing myself to feel. Because sometimes we go through so many things back to back and we really don't get an opportunity, you know, whether it be to grieve or to process whatever season we're in, good things, bad things. And it was a lot. Like, my kids are close. I had one, and then I had another. I had postpartum. Then there was, you know, lost a job and an eviction. In my mind, why would I ever get it?
Right.
Like, I don't know who I thought I was, but I thought that it couldn't happen because I was doing what I was supposed to do. So after all these things consecutively happening back to back and not really having a moment to process, to stop, to think, to do anything, just rolling with the punches, I was depleted of myself and anything and everything around me. And all I could do was cry.
Yeah. And postpartum is real. Like, so at your conference, right? You had she's actually gonna be on my podcast. I'm not gonna tell y'all when, but she's gonna be on my podcast. She's gonna be on my podcast. And like when I began to kind of like, you know, think about the when I had my second son, I probably did go through like some postpartum depression, right? But I feel like it's just so like swept under the rug, right? Like it's like you know, because you got to keep going and you got to keep doing what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no time to really like think about it. But like I remember just being in such a dark, ugly space and place, you know, and I was kind of like just like kind of putting a band-aid, you know, on a wound, type of thing. So I know that, you know, you and I call her Nana, right? You know, you guys are bringing awareness, right, to postpartum, right? So can you just speak about postpartum depression and kind of like what that looks like? And, you know, I don't know if you maybe can give like people like some things to do, because maybe it may be somebody that may be watching or may watch, right, that maybe even be going through postpartum depression now, and to be able to see you sitting on a platform to say like, I'm still here, like I made it, you know, that may help somebody. So kind of just talk a little bit about, you know, postpartum depression, what that looks like, and then what are some things or some resources even that people are able to tap into as well.
So postpartum depression is definitely something that's going to look different for everyone. Just like me and Aisha wearing the same shirt right now, it's two different sizes, but it's the same shirt. It's something that affects you mentally, physically, emotionally, and you don't always know that you have postpartum. For me, I've been in the medical field for over 10 years, so it was easy for me to, you know, kind of ignore the signs or neglect what I thought might be a concern. So how it's diagnosed most of the time is through a questionnaire, and they give you several questions, and you scale from 1 to 10 if you're experiencing any of the symptoms. At the end, they tally it up, and then they go from there. For me, postpartum I was still able to take care of my kids. I didn't feel a detachment from them. A lot of times that's one of the biggest ones a lot of women have in common is not being able to bond with their child. But I didn't have that. I bonded with my kids. I had my kids, but I isolated myself from the rest of the world. I isolated myself from my relationship, anyone and everyone around me. It was just me and the kids. I would literally lock myself in the room with my kids and stay there all day long. The process took a while. Once I realized that I started to scare myself because I felt numb. I didn't feel anything. I repeated the same routines every day, but I couldn't feel anything. I was under medication still because I did have a cesarean, but outside of that, I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to shower. I didn't want to go outside. I literally didn't want to do anything. As long as my kids were fed and okay, that was enough for me, and nothing else I did. the resource I use, I don't have the number on me now, but there's a number that you can reach out to. You can call them. They can, check your insurance, and you can go through therapy. So that's what I did. I did some therapy sessions through my insurance, and then once that was over, they give you like a certain amount of sessions. But once I did that, I continued to do therapy. It did help me, but it doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes people need more physical stimulation, working out or yoga, different things. You really just have to find what works best for you, as in regular depression, any type of stress or anxiety, something to help you release what it is that you're feeling in the way that you can receive it. And it did work for me. It took a while for me to understand that I did have postpartum depression and that it was okay. Because a lot of times it's not okay. You're a mother. You're supposed to wear a cape. You're supposed to take care of everyone. You're supposed to take care of yourself. But you're really not able to, because if you're not good, no one else is good. But you lose yourself and don't know or don't have the abilities to take care of yourself. So for me, that's what I did. I chose the therapy route. It did work for me, but it did take time. It's something that you have to commit to and be ready for. But yeah, it definitely looks different for everyone. For anyone that has experienced postpartum or will experience postpartum, there's help. These days it's not as bad as it was, 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
But you're not alone. That's absolutely not alone. You can get through it, but it takes time. And, don't let anyone rush your process, I would say, because people think you're supposed to be okay when they want you to be okay, because they may need whatever they need from you. So for me, that was kind of a little bit of what my process was like, and, me going through therapy and how it helped.
That's good. And I definitely do agree with that. Like, so I am a huge advocate, right, of therapy. And the number, do you have the number though?
I do.
Okay. So no, you don't have to get it now, but I want to put it in you can just drop it in the comments after we get off. Because like I said, you never know who may watch this, right? And they may need that resource. Right. So yeah, definitely. But yes, I'm a huge advocate of therapy. And right, it is true that sometimes therapy does not work sometimes for everybody. Right. But it also takes consistency and discipline too as well. It's just kind of like, when you're looking for like that career job, right? Like you start this job and you're like, you know what, this is not my end. So I'm not gonna, I'm gonna apply for another job, right? So you can look for a therapist, right, that is a fit for you, right? Just because the first therapist doesn't work doesn't mean that the second therapist won't work, right? But I am a huge advocate because I feel like sometimes people need to speak to people outside of who knows them, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're speaking to your therapist, you guys don't owe each other anything. They don't owe you anything. You don't owe them anything, but to be real and honest and get the tools that you need to be able to, navigate through this thing called life. Right, in your situations. So I am definitely a huge advocate of therapy. But also with, going to therapy, there's also work that has to be put into it too as well. Like, so you have to put action behind the tools that the therapists give you. Like you have to put them into play. Like you have to use them in order for, you to be able to begin to see growth and see healing too as well. Right. So it's definitely uncomfortable. It's not easy, but again, it's necessary. So I'm a huge advocate of therapy. And I know like right now, a lot of people, like that's been reading my book, they've been reaching out to me and they'll say, I'm looking into getting a therapist. Like one of the girls last week, she was just telling me that, I'm on a waiting list now because everybody is looking into therapy now, especially since, COVID. So, therapy is definitely where it's at. I would definitely, hands down, always recommend therapy. So thank you for sharing that though. That was good. That was good. Now, it was one thing. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. What'd you say, sis?
I said, doing therapy is great and making that decision, but also having an open mind. Because believe it or not, when I was going through postpartum depression, my therapist was a male.
You said your therapist did what?
It was a male. It wasn't a woman.
Mm.
And at first I was like,
How you gonna help me?
right. Because you want, of course, what's comfortable, what you think you can relate to. But I had a successful process, and it was with a male.
That's good. That's good to hear. And I feel like that gives people hope, right? Like, because first of all, I feel like most of the time we go in like, don't nobody know me better than me, so you can't really help me.
Tell me.
Right, right, that part. So it was now. I've known you now for, I'll say about 5 or 6 years. I did not know that we kind of shared something similar with our mothers, right? So, I do always ask, like, what's your definition of forgiveness? But also another one of the questions is, if you had to forgive yourself for something, what would it be? Right. And I felt like when I read your response, I'm like, who would have knew, right? Like, because I feel like we never really had a conversation like that, right? Like, it's always kind of just been about like us, the kids, our dark times or whatever, but never really talking about, like our mom situation, right? And now I know that, and just correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize if I am wrong, but your mom is deceased.
No. So my
Okay.
biological mother is not deceased, but who raised me is deceased.
Gotcha. Okay. So your biological mom is still alive.
Yep.
Now, I did not know that you blamed yourself for your biological mother's drug addiction, right? Now, my mom too, as well, with being an ex addict, right? Was on drugs too, as well, right? Which was very hard for me as a child, as a teenager, and then into my adulthood, right? And I always felt like if I could just be better, if I could just do something, right? Like maybe this won't happen, right? Um, I always felt like I took the blame for that too, as well. So I didn't realize that we shared that at all. So kind of just speak about, and again, I didn't realize that your mom was alive. I thought your mother was deceased. So I didn't realize that your mom was alive. So kind of just talk about um, how that made you feel and why did you blame yourself for your mom drug addiction? Because you know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, it's not our fault. Like they make their own choices, right? But it's something in us that thinks that we could have done something different.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I feel like as an adolescent, you're not mature. You can only think on the level where you are. And as long as my memory goes back, I was in another household. Um, so for me, it was a little confusing because, my godmother would tell me, your mother is sick. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Like, she would never say what, she would just say she's sick. So I would see her sometimes here and there. I would spend time with that side of my family here and there. She would come around. But it was very confusing to me because I never understood. So, in kindergarten and first grade and those young stages, you see people with their parents. And I thought I knew who my parents were in the household that I was living in. But then I was told that that wasn't the case. So it was very confusing for me growing up. Being in different households, I was a lot of transitioning, a lot of different schools. I probably literally from K to 12 had to go to like 10 different schools at least. Live in different towns. I was back and forth. I literally felt like a hot potato. Um, it was very hard for me to process. I didn't really know how I felt or what I was going through. I just felt like I have someone that loves me in a family, but I'm being told that I have another family, but that family is not around. You know, being told this is my mother, but she's not doing what who I think my mother is or who I see as mother doing. So it hurt and it caused a lot of confusion because even then, therefore, when I had to be around her or my other family, a lot of people expected me to connect and bond, and I didn't because I didn't. I felt like a stranger. I didn't feel connected. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel what I felt in the household where I was growing up in, and I felt like I blamed myself because you would tell me, that you love me, but you didn't want me. So how can you love me but you don't want me? I couldn't understand that you were unable to care for me. All I knew is love, you're around, you're present. Love, you give, you support. I didn't have that. It was just I guess she was able to, or whenever she would get clean, then she would want me back. So it was like a tug of war. She get clean, she wants me back. She goes through a struggle or relapse, obviously then she was unable to care for me. So I kind of just went through that, up until my senior year in high school, where I had to make the decision, okay, I know I'm 18 and I may not have all the tools for my adult life or know what's next, but I know I have to remove myself because it's unhealthy and I still knew I needed to be parented. But I blame myself. I blame myself for a very long time because I couldn't understand why you couldn't be okay, why you couldn't take care of me and my sisters. I have two biological sisters from my mother, and we were all in different places for the most part. So it was definitely a difficult time, and it was a hard upbringing, trying to understand and comprehend. And then my biological father, I was confused because I'm like, well, where are you at? He wasn't on drugs, but he just wasn't present. He financially provided, but I didn't really, come to know him and develop a rapport with him until I was probably like 13. And even that was still scattered because it was always through now two parties, my biological mother and then the home that I was in.
Right.
So it created a lot of confusion and distress for me over the years. But I definitely did think it was my fault because as a child, I didn't know any better. And all I knew is that, I have people that love me and it's supposed to be my parents, but they're not around.
Right. Now, did you have resentment towards your mother and your biological mother and your biological father too, as well?
Absolutely. As far as my biological father, it was a little different. I did actually have a conversation with him a couple years ago. I was probably maybe 10 years ago, but whenever it was, I just asked him. I said, I want to know and hear from you, because I don't want to walk around with this hurt and this anger towards you when I don't understand what actually took place. From my understanding, you just weren't there because you didn't want to be. So I allowed him to, explain his side, and what it was like for him before, I kind of took it at and ran with it. I felt like I was at a point where we could have a semi-adult conversation and I can get some answers that I needed, for my own healing. So after that conversation, things got a little better. I felt like it took us to another level to where we could be transparent and kind of really do the work after I was able to express myself. And I felt like he received everything that I was saying and gave me the opportunity to just say how I felt without, any judgment or, telling me I was wrong, but allowing me to actually feel what I felt.
Yeah, that's good. And then what about have you ever had a sit down like with your mom too as well, like that you had with your father?
I've had conversations, with my biological mother about, certain aspects of how I felt during those. Unfortunately, I really do not know her current status of health, but she struggled a lot longer up until, in my 20s. So I feel like it was very hard when I feel like she wasn't recovered to have these conversations. But I've attempted, we've had to get to, a common ground. We had a rapport. I won't say much of a relationship, but a rapport, I show her respect, when I do her, and love, but we really don't have a relationship. And hopefully, God willing, she, gets to the point where she can live the rest of her life to be the best of her life in a healthy state, and we are able to, um, have some of those more harder conversations. But I feel like it's hard to have, if you're not in the right mindset.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Especially if that person is not there. Right. Like, because at the end of the day, like, you have to, both parties have to be willing, to be able to have that open dialogue. Right. And if both parties are not necessarily there, it just, it's kind of like, does it really make sense? Right. To pour all that energy and and all that honesty, does it really make sense at this time? Right, so it's always that timing that we always talk about too as well. But I'm happy that you just, what I'm saying, that you did the work though, and continue to doing the work, right, and just healing and understanding that she's just not there, right, like she's not there, like, and this is just, but I'm going heal for me, right, and be at peace for me, for first and foremost. And I did the same thing with my dad too as well, because my dad was not completely absent at all, but with learning and with us having a conversation, my dad was on my podcast last month, which was so dope and amazing. I was so happy that we were able to be in a place and space now, like our relationship has gotten even better, but he allowed me to be able to pour my heart out and really tell him how I really felt, about, him in and out, showing up, not showing up, you know, um, broken promises, like I talked about all that. Like I was allowed to really like pour my heart out. And I just said, like, he literally just sat there. Like he didn't say anything. He allowed me, for that day, he allowed me to say everything that I needed to say. And then moving forward, then began to kind of like put those pieces, together. And now like, as I continue to always just like self-reflect back, right? Especially after writing my book, I had to do a lot of self-reflection. I just really like, my thought process is like so much different. Like, wow, I really understand. Like he was really in a space of where he could not he had to choose him. Like he couldn't choose me. He was mentally, he couldn't choose me. He had to choose him. And if he didn't choose him, we probably wouldn't have been on that podcast last month. So, but I feel like that is definitely a part of, of healing, and that's a part of putting in that work, right? Having those conversations. And sometimes they're uncomfortable, but again, they're necessary. They're necessary for real. For real. It was another question that I wanted to, oh, I know what it is. So I always ask I haven't asked all my guests, because sometimes we don't necessarily have to go there, but I feel like this is a good time to ask that question, right? So in this moment, what would Cherell say to her younger self?
A lot. But I feel like the main thing I would say to myself now is, love yourself the way God loves you, not the way the world loves you, and just knowing that God's love is enough, and that, I was not a mistake.
Mm.
I was not a mistake. I am marked. I'm here. And it does not have to be what I've seen. I don't have to repeat that cycle and be the mother that I had. That's definitely what I would tell myself. That love is so important. That love is so important.
It is. That's good. That's good to be able to, just love on you more than anything, because again, I feel like through this journey that I have learned that love is not a feeling, it's
Right.
an action word, right? Like it's like that saying, what that they always say, like I'm gonna show you better than I can tell you.
Right.
Like that's what love is, right? And God is the only one that never changes, like no matter what. But again, that's something personal. You have to wholeheartedly, believe that. So that is good. Um, yeah, I like that. I'm not crying tonight. I know I did have my tissue though.
I love you too.
I had my tissue ready. I even took one out just to be on the safe side. And this first of all, this tissue packet is so cute. So this is from Cherell's Mother to Mother conference. And it says always pray and never give up. Luke 18:1. This is dope. And the crazy thing is I haven't opened it, but I carry it around every day in my pocketbook. And tonight I'm like, oh, I'm gonna use my tissue. But I didn't have to use my tissue, so maybe next time around. I don't know. I'll open my pack though tonight for you. So I never like to go without, hashtags. I love a good hashtag, right? But you did a few hashtags. Do you remember your hashtags?
I think yeah.
Okay. You do? Okay. She said, with confidence. So talk about the one that really I was just like, the plot twist. Hashtag the plot twist. Talk about that.
So most people read, and they know what a plot is. And for me, like I said, for a long time I was running away or competing with myself of who I didn't want to be, and that was my mother. Everything I thought about my identity was based off of not being like her. But when I, understood or started to process God's love for me and embracing it, then I understood it wasn't going to be that, and it didn't have to be that. So I call myself, even in my sisters, the plot twist, because we have the ability, and God has already ordained it to be above what we could ask or think.
That's good. That's good. I was like, the plot twist. I'm like, oh, is that a book? Maybe she's sneaking a book on me in the hashtag. Listen, that may be.
No, we're not doing that.
I'm just saying, sis. I'm just saying. I feel like if I could write a book, anybody could write a book.
Right, that part, because honey,
I'm telling you, but it was not easy by far. And I feel like I feel like I'm just holding myself like more accountable. Right. Cause now I'm like, all right, Naisha, you didn't gave birth to, your baby, right? So now what are you gonna do with it? Right. Cause now it needs to be nurtured, right? Like you need to continue to feed it, right? Like, so I just equated it to like, like a mother when you have your baby, right? Like after you have your baby, you just don't bring your baby home and then let them sit in the crib, right? Until they're able to walk and talk. Like you gotta do some work with this baby, right? So I'm like, all right, so I gotta make sure I'm being more intentional, right? Like, jumping on lives, blessing people with a copy, of my book, right? And getting feedback. I'm even thinking about like maybe going into the schools, right? And, girl groups and kind of like just because I'm like, I said to myself earlier, I'm like, I want to be the vessel that is able to be used and be able to be that person that I desired to have when I was younger.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because like there was like, I just always I never really felt safe enough, right, to speak up and speak out. Like I always felt like I had a muzzle on my mouth, because if I did speak up, I was always like, no, you can't say that, right? So it went into that, being a people pleaser and, putting on a mask, and the mask being a part of my personality, right? So I kind of want to be able to be that bridge. So I feel like I'm in this like weird space right now, like, okay, advocacy and, speaking out and, so, yeah. So if I could do it, you could do it, sis. Yeah. So the plot twist. is the book. Listen, you didn't say no, so that's a start.
I receive it. The plot twist. The plot twist.
Listen. So our time is coming near to end. Tell the people how they could, what if somebody has some questions, right? For you. Let the people know how they could reach out to you, your all your social media stuff.
So you can find me. Okay. It's my first name, Cherell / Anthony's my middle name. On Instagram, I am rel_is_T. You can find me there. And we can chat, we can talk. I'm always here. I'm always an ear. Like Naisha said, we try to be what we didn't have and what we do have or what we gained throughout these process. It's funny. My biological mom is on.
Wow. Hello.
It's bigger than us. It's bigger than me, and everything that I went through for a reason. And I truly believe, even if there's been some things that God haven't used or I don't feel like He will use, and it was worth it. If someone else doesn't have to go through it, or they can have the tools or the support to feel just a little less than what we felt, I'm here for it. It's always a yes.
Yeah. Which is dope, because I always say, unmasking and unveiling yourself is, it's hard in itself, right? For you to self-reflect and do it, but to do it in front of people, right? That's not easy. It takes courage, it takes honesty. It takes a certain level of vulnerability, right, too, as well, and being able to be transparent completely, and not being afraid of being judged, right, because your story is your truth. So I just thank you. I thank you so much, for doing what you're doing, for coming on, for giving me a yes with no hesitation. And I really do look forward to the Mother to Mother conference to be even bigger than what it was this year, because it was super amazing. It was necessary. Everybody it was such a great vibe. Like, I left like so empowered, right, to be amongst women. Like, it was amazing. It was really dope. So just like I know that was hard for you, right? Because you wanted to. I'm talking when whatever you could think about came your way to try to cancel that event, but you push through. Okay, so I'm definitely looking forward to the next one, and also you don't even have to say it, I am definitely writing the vision and I am making it plain, because Beauty for Ashes conference will be in 2023. It will. It definitely will. So we got a Mother to Mother conference. We got Beauty for Ashes. We just out here healing and living our best lives.
I'm signing up now.
Right. Well, I'm signing up for yours.
Listen, I don't know what I can do. You better get me now. I'm like, okay, whatever you need, Naisha. Because you held my hand all the way through, and you're always going to get the same return, the same love and commitment that you have given, me and Alexis and Aiden over the years. So Beauty for Ashes, I'm there, whatever you need.
Thank you, sis. I appreciate that. But that's what it's all about. Listen, when I say I'm my sister's keeper, I mean that. I don't just say it to say it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean it wholeheartedly when I say I am my sister's keeper. And that's what it's all about. Like, we are supposed to be able to be there. If we call each other sisters, if we're in a sisterhood, right? And it don't always have to be about monetary stuff. You know what I'm saying? Right. And not what you could do for me or what you're going to get me for my birthday or for Christmas. No, like, when you got somebody that is praying for you, when you have somebody that is just a listening ear, when you have somebody where you could just lean and cry on their shoulder, like, that means a lot in a sisterhood. right? Like outside of, your husband, your partner, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about a sister, right? That you can really depend on and know that I'm going to be able to speak out and say what I want to say, right? But they're also going to hold me accountable too, as well, right? Like they ain't just going to let me just, you know what I'm saying, go off and fly off on a tangent, right? Like, because, I remember when you was going through those dark days, I would call you like, what's up? You ain't want to pick up the phone. What's up? Listen, if you got to just sit here and cry, go ahead. I'm listening. So I love y'all. I love everybody that has joined. Thank you guys so much. People who have joined for the first time. I'm on once a month. I'll be on again next month. Make sure you come on. Also, make sure you check out my my Insta series too on Instagram. UTCM_podcast. I'm also going to be more intentional. I'm continuing to put action behind my yes. So I am going to becoming more going live a little bit more. And I kind of want to just like start to do like little just like sections from my book, kind of talk about it, have a little dialogue, a little open forum. Right. So yeah, so I'm down for walking into my next, which is the acronym for WIN. So yeah, so we all good. So I love you, sis. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for coming on. And thank you, everybody. Good night. Everybody have a safe Friday and a great weekend. We out, y'all.